Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 50 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and we are excited to announce our 50th podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in and checking out and seeing all that we do here and making the podcast such a big success. We are very excited. In this episode, we are going to take a break from our reloading series, and we want to talk about your definition of long-range shooting. We are also excited to announce that MDT has donated another chassis to give away. So our last chassis giveaway went out to the great nation, our northern friends in Canada, and on this chassis, brand new in the box, is going to go out to someone here in the United States celebrating the 4th of July. So this is going to be for USA residents only. To register for the giveaway, just go over to our Facebook page at Wolf Precision Inc. and tag 3 people, follow us on Facebook, and you are in the running, and the drawing will be held on the 4th of July. So hurry up, get signed up. Great chassis giveaway. Thank you, MDT, for donating the chassis and sending it our way. So hurry up, get signed up, get registered. The 4th of July is not too far away, and without further ado, here we go. All right, so I get asked this question a lot, of course, long-range shooting. And it's sort of funny. We're in the middle of our long-range shooting schools, and I talk about this a lot at the class. We teach the subject. We wrote the book that we give here at the school on the subject. We take a lot of time and discuss the arts and fundamentals and everything that gets involved in making these shots. But what is your definition of long-range shooting? This part I sort of find fascinating. And we're going to start a little Facebook section there where we're going to ask people, give us your definition of long-range shooting. And we'll have you chime in underneath and join the conversation, and really curious to see what people have to say. So slide over to Facebook at Wolf Precision Inc. and just type in your definition of long-range shooting. So I'd seriously like to hear, what your definition is. When I think of long-range shooting, I go back to, there's a varmint hunting book called A Varmint Hunter's Odyssey. A Varmint Hunter's Odyssey. And it's been out for quite a while, and it was a fantastic read. If you get a chance to check out this book, I certainly recommend it. One of the things I liked a lot about the book is they kept the distances within reality. So they're varmint hunters. They want to hit stuff at distance, and they're shooting really, really big caliber. So they're shooting stuff like the 300 Win Mag neck down to a 6mm and just crazy calibers. Fast, flat shooting, accurate. And they broke their book down into 4 segments. They had short range, medium range, long range, and ultra long range. And I thought it was one of the most honest definitions of ultra long range shooting that I could find. And what they thought, like short range was 100 to 200, medium range was 200 to 500. I think long range was 500 to 700 yards, and ultra long range was something like 700 to 1,000. And in this day and age, when people start talking about king of whatever mile that's being shot out there, we're getting these exaggerated distances that really are outside the practical application of what we're really trying to do. And that's first round hit on a varmint, critter, hunting, wartime scenarios where you get into the people that have that type of job. But what is your definition of long-range shooting? We get asked this all the time. Like, we build long-range rifles, and there's quite a big difference between a hunting rifle and a long-range rifle. And so I'm going to try to break down and sort of just give you what my opinion is on what long-range shooting is. Its fundamentals applied at distance. It's environmental reading applied at distance to hit a target. And I think that's about it. Fundamentals applied at distance, reading environmentals applied at distance, putting the two together, and trying to hit something. Now, I'm not talking spray and pray here, where you go and throw sporting clays up at 1,000 yards and just goof around with your buddies, putting a couple rounds down range and just shooting some stuff. What I'm talking about is intentionally and willingly putting a bullet where you want it to go at long range. And that is actually really hard to do. And so what is long range shooting? We got a class kicking off tomorrow morning, 3-day class here. And we talk about this. And so there's 3 things I think to get into long range shooting. But I like to say it's precision shooting at distance. It's fundamentals at distance. It's not really long range shooting. Anybody can shoot long range, but not everybody's going to hit what they were aiming at. And I think that's where the definition splits. So you've got long range shooting and hitting, and you've got long range shooting. But when you get into this type of stuff, there's 3 things that happen that I think are really important. The first part is fundamentals. What's going on behind the muzzle as you're getting ready to shoot? And being very solid on the relationship with the rifle, that you're a great team working together, and that you touching the rifle in the areas that you are, because we have to have our hands on the rifle, we put our faces on the rifle, we have our fingers on it, all these body parts are touching, and we're loading pressure in the stock. We have to be able to do all of this with a working relationship with the rifle to let it naturally do what it wants to do without us interfering with the shot. And one of the hardest things to do is fundamentals of marksmanship. It's this bubble around the shooter that you have to get right before you pull the trigger, because if not, the only thing you see is the results of what you did wrong. And so you've got the fundamentals. Then you've got the mechanical aspect of it. And what I'm talking about is dialing your dope, having a good scope that you can dial to a very specific distance and expect to be centered. Expect to hit it in the center. Have your dope worked out. To go along with mechanical is environmental. This has a lot to do with it as well, because now you've got not just wind drift or wind pushing your bullet left and right. You have the effects of the wind that can rise and fall your point of impact ever so slightly, depending on which way the wind is blowing to the rotation of the bullet. You also have spin drift. You've got density altitude or barometric pressure, altitude on the map where you're shooting. And so as you get at distance, these other factors become a much, much greater challenge. A fundamentally sound shooter can do amazing things at 100 yards. It's just absolutely fascinating to watch. And we do it here at the school. The first day at the class is just, I think, harder on the students because we're so hyper-focused on the fundamentals of marksmanship, and we just constantly keep working and reinforcing and working and correcting and reinforcing, because we know that when we shoot the long stuff on day 2, long-range shooting, that if they don't have the fundamentals down, they're not going to hit a lot of stuff. We just hyper-focus on fundamentals of marksmanship. And I can usually tell, like, in the class, if people are really paying attention and they're working really hard and they get the fundamentals down, I will all but guarantee that they're going to have the time of their lives on day 2 or day 3, because the rest of it's pretty easy as far as it's a learned art. Dialing your dope and getting your dope figured out, learning how to read the wind. It's from then on, it's mechanical and environmental. You can fundamentally now hit the target. You are good enough with the rifle that you can hold an inch. At 100, you could probably hit a 10-inch plate at 1,000. Now you've got to work on making sure that your dope is correct, making sure that the environment isn't affecting it up and down and left and right. Make those adjustments, and you'll hit it every single time. It's absolutely amazing to watch. So my definition of long-range shooting is, again, applying fundamentals at distance and learning and applying your environmentals at the same time. Then you've got the practical application of it. How far can you shoot? How far do you want to shoot? What type of shooting are you going to do? Varmint hunters are amazing groups. I always like spending time with varmint hunters because they're absolutely obsessed with hitting small stuff at distance. And they know that small errors are complete misses. If you're shooting prairie dogs at 600 yards, now some people call bowling for gophers because there's a whole bunch of them on a mound, and you might not hit the one you're aiming at. You might hit the one left or right of them. It's still a hit. But like for us here shooting woodchucks or crows at 600-700 yards. Like, for example, we had an Alaskan boat captain come through the class recently, and just being able to shoot at those distances and be confident that you can hit what you're aiming at, both fundamentally and your ability to read what's going on in the environment, is amazing. I mean, he came as a shooter that never shot beyond 200 yards, and I don't think anyone in his particular class had shot beyond 250. And by the end of day 3, there's a shooting test, and we turn them loose. And the only thing I have to constantly remind them of once in a while is A, make sure you're keeping a really close eye on the wind, but B, keep close eye on your fundamentals. Because even if you get the wind right and you get all the other environmental things right, you get your doped out in right, if you screw things up before you take the shot fundamentally, you're going to miss anyway. So it's fundamentals first. So my definition of long-range shooting isn't anything with distance. It's really just precision shooting. It's the ability to hit small stuff, and then as your skill set grows, hit small stuff at distance. You're fundamentally sound enough that you can run the rifle that well, and then you start learning the environment. The competitive world allows you to really stretch it out and put you in, I think what's really cool about it is the timed events where you get on the line, you don't get to sit there and play the wind for 10, 15 minutes or shoot 4 or 5 sighters. You literally get on the line cold and you have to start when the buzzer goes. And you've got to shoot in the conditions that are applying effects to your bullet right then and there. That's amazing to watch. And it's actually a great way to train. Hunters are the same way. We train and work really hard to know our limits on how far we can practically shoot an animal. And, for me, my definition for a long shot on a big game animal has got to be 600 yards, 650 yards. Beyond that, it's humbling what a hidden wind or a gust or something that you didn't see, how far it can push you left or right and make what could have been a great shot into an absolutely horrific shot, or it's either gut shooting the animal or breaking a leg or shooting them in the hindquarter, just somewhere where you just don't want them to shoot. And so my personal definition for hunting long range, besides varmints like woodchucks and crows and prairie dogs, of course, those are, as far as the targets make themselves an opportunity, that's awesome, right? But on big game hunting or hunting in general, 650 yards, if you can reliably make first round impacts and hits at that distance, especially in field conditions, you're a hell of a shooter. I mean, it takes a lot of work to consistently do that. And so would that be long range shooting in my book? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I watch guys all the time just doing one shot drills out to 700 yards, and the winds catch them at 700 all the time. And we shoot small plates. I mean, we have some big plates like 22 inch, but some of our plates are 10, 12, and 14 inches. Well, that's small. But legitimately, that's the size of a kill zone on some of the animals that we're harvesting. And so a 1 or 2 mile an hour shift can completely push you out of that kill zone area. And so knowing your own limits and practicing to stay super sharp fundamentally first, and then say hyper-focused on both what you're going to do mechanically, dialing your dope, and what you're going to do for the environment. And that's the combination of the three that's going to buy you that ticket for a great shot at 600 yards. That's just how it works. But match shooting is a little bit different in the fact that we can apply our skill set and enjoy it, where we would never take a shot at 1,200 yards. At least I wouldn't. Everybody has their own cup of tea, and I don't police and judge for people that shoot further or shorter distance than myself. I think everybody has to make that decision for themselves. And I'm not judging anyone who shot an elk at 1,200 yards. If that's what you feel comfortable doing, that's your call, not mine. And I'm not judging. But what I'm saying in matches, what I like a lot is, for me personally, is they'll put you in these longer shots that have no consequences out of a miss for hunting. So it's steel. If you miss it, a half a mil left, well, you dropped some points in a match, but you learned a lot. And you're learning the skill set. In match shooting, I think it's really cool is the fact that they'll put you in really compromised positions that you'll find in nature all the time as a hunter, but never rears its ugly head until you're ready to shoot an animal. So rarely have I ever laid perfectly prone in a great, perfect, stable position shooting at big game. It's a rarity. And usually the one rock is the one dug in your ribs while you're trying to set up for the shot. That's just simply how it goes. So I love it that the fact that they put you in these scenarios that you would never invent yourself. You would never set it up yourself. You're going to shoot from all these awkward positions and helps you train, and I think helps you pick out what you're weak at, which is, for me, the most beneficial thing at the matches. Like when I go to a match or have done matches in the past, there were things that I would kick butt on, and then there were things that I wouldn't do well, or a particular stage that I've never seen before. And I would not do well at the stage, and that would throw a flag in the air for me, and I would go home and practice and train it. For me, that's what I was looking for. I didn't want to verify what I was good at. I wanted it to draw out what I'm not good at, what I need to practice on. Is there something weak in my fundamentals that I should really, really go after? So long-range shooting definitions, if you get a chance, go over to our Facebook page. We are going to ask the question. I would like you to chime in. Just your opinions. I'm not judging anyone at distance. I would just like to hear what you have to say. And, we're not talking whether it's hunting or target shooting, but just what you really think long-distance shooting is to you as a shooter. I would love to hear what you have to say. Curiosity's got the best of me, and I would like to see a poll on this and see what the average guy really thinks long-range shooting is. I know what mine is, and I think, for hunting scenarios or for match scenarios, like we shot out to a mile, shooting on steel, that's a lot of fun. You can't take that away that it's just a big giggle factor to shoot at something at a mile and hit it. But is there a practical application for the hunting side? No, not really. There's so many things that go on with the wind and other stuff that, outside of having to take that shot, and maybe if you're in the military or something like that, then of course you're going to be in those scenarios. But for us, we have the choice to get closer for the hunting applications that we do. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Go over to our Facebook page at Wolf Precision Inc. I'm going to start this right after this podcast goes live, and just chime on over. And I'd love to hear it. And by the way, don't forget when you go over there to register to win the new MDT chassis, the XRS that we're going to be giving away on the 4th of July. Speaking of the 4th of July, it's our nation's birthday. I love our country. I know a lot of people out there feel the same. We really are blessed where we live and the opportunities that we've been given. For all those that have served, I've learned a fact that only 1% of our country is served in the military. I actually thought it was much higher than that. And here in Pennsylvania, if you walk around any of the graveyard sites that are here in our area, and you look around, there's way more than 1% flags. Like if you look at the tombstones and you're thinking, oh my gosh, 10, 20% of these have flags on them. And it puts a little bit of pride in for Central PA. In World War I or World War II, this was called the Bloody Bucket for a reason. A lot of people from this area went and served, and a lot of them died. And so for those that have served our great country, I always say thank you. You are the 1%. That you voluntarily went and did a job that you were asked to do for this great country and did it well. So thank you guys for all of that. And the 1% fact I did not know. It was brought up in a speech and I thought that was fascinating as well. So MDT is giving away the chassis. You don't have to be military or anything like that to apply for it or to enter, but we just wanted to give something away on the 4th of July, and I thought this was a great way to do it. So back to long-range shooting, just really quick. One more thing I want to touch base on. Caliber. I want to hear what your favorite long-range caliber is. I'll share with you mine. And so for practicing, my favorite ever was a 223, shooting 75 grain bullets. We ran them out to 1,000 yards all the time. I used to go to training events, and I would take my 223, and I've had many instructors look at me and go, what the, you brought that? What are you thinking? They're looking at you like you're the dumbest person on the planet. Are you getting this? This is long-range shooting. We don't have 223s here on the line. And then we'd have plates out 6, 7, 8, 900, 1,000 yards, and I'd be hitting them with a 22-inch suppressed 223. Now, granted, they were hand loads, and they were 75 grain ELDs or back then AMAX. It had a really nice high BC, but oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And then the conversations would start, and they were like, wow, I think I'm going to build a 223 trainer. That's right. So, go in undergunned, over-talented every time, and you'll have a lot of fun. So I built a lot of 223s over the years, just simply because that is one of my favorite practicing long-range calibers. My new favorite long-range caliber is the 22 Creedmoor for shooting, period. Like for varminting, can't wait to go out. Hunting, I think it's great application. Absolutely stunning at 1,000 yards. It hits as hard as a 6.5 Creed. I mean, just absolutely incredible round. I really, really hope that Hornady produces factory ammunition for this. I know there's a couple makers out there right now. So 22 Creed's probably my favorite fun long-range cartridge now. And then if I had a long-range cartridge, what would be my absolute favorite? My vote would be the 300 Win Mag. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's old school, and there's so many other calibers out there that are hotter, faster, better, shoot heavier bullets. Like, for example, the 338 would be in that crowd. But one of the things I find magical about 300 Win Mag, and by the way, the belt does not hurt the accuracy of the gun. Many 1,000-yard bench rest guns were built in 300 Win Mag. Many world records fell to it. It was the bench rest cartridge forever. I think one of the reasons why it's my favorite really long-range cartridge is because you can shoot the 208s and those heavier class bullets that hit much harder at distance. So it's hard to spot your shots at long range. So you start shooting to a mile or those distances or 1,600 yards. The 6.5 Creeds and all that will get there for sure, but they just don't hit hard enough to see the impact on steel sometimes, or if you miss, to kick up some dirt or something like that. So I find the 300 Win Mag fascinating that it's completely engulfed in tons of people out there to support it for ammunition. So everything from Black Hills to Hornady, it's still adopted by the military. So it is super heavily supported, relatively inexpensive, and it's right at that threshold where I can still enjoy shooting. When I shoot long range, I like to spot my own shots, and I'll do like a 22-inch suppressed, for example, or a 26-inch suppressed. 22 is perfect for a 300 Win Mag suppressed, by the way. You really don't give up too much velocity. The gun stays calm, and we build them in heavy barrels and light barrels alike. But one of the things I think, and the reason the 300 Win Mag would get my vote, and I would like to hear what your vote is for your long range cartridge of choice. So when we go over to this Facebook post, we're going to do your definition of long-range shooting. Type in, your favorite caliber for long-range steel or something like that, and then your favorite caliber for hunting, maybe long-range or varminting. Just make a little side note. What your definition is and what calibers you shoot to what distances. I would love to see that little poll. So if you guys can do that for me, that would be awesome. I'll chime in with you. I'll throw mine stuff up there. You guys can just chime in right along. So 300 Win Mag, I would say, is still my favorite. I have a barrel on the shelf. I shoot it every once in a while. It stuns me how well it shoots with factory ammunition sometimes, but it's just a pleasant magnum to shoot. It's not overbearing, but I can still shoot those heavy 208 grain plus bullets that get that long-range energy on target so I can see that I hit something, which would be pretty nice. We have a great customer of ours. His name's Ken. Ken is an auto mechanic, and his goal was to break a Coke can at a mile with a 300 Win Mag. And he did it with the small Coke can. How cool is that? But he's a varmint hunter, so I get the concept of trying to hit something that small at distance. We used to put tomatoes up, a bunch of tomatoes that were no good to eat. We'd take them and set them up at 3, 4, and 5 and just watch the bullets explode on impact, just to have some fun. I will just throw this out here really quick. We got a really great phone call from a customer that listened to our last podcast. We were talking about animals being too close with the wrong bullets going too fast. And he had shared a story that he shot an elk twice at within 100 yards with a 7 mag, never harvested the animal, blew up on the shoulder, and the only thing they found was some shoulder blade fragments. So they're thinking that the only thing it did was blow up on the shoulder. And so he wanted to say, after listening to the podcast, that, hey, I actually experienced that. And so just to throw that out there, that the customer had called, or that a listener had called and shared his story, that has experienced that at super high speed calibers at very close range with the inappropriate bullet, or a bullet that might not perform at those velocities at close range, can spell disaster for us as hunters. So that was really nice of him to take the time to call in, talk a little bit, and share his story. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. So, guys, I don't want to take up this podcast too long. We are getting ready to kick off a shooting school tomorrow morning. Excited to get a group of guys out here and spend 3 days at the range with them. So you get a chance, make sure you register for that stock giveaway. Make sure you pop over to Facebook and just chime in on our long range, your definition of it, and maybe some of the calibers that you prefer or your favorite caliber for hunting long range or for varminting long range or for steel long range. Just chime in there. Love to see what y'all have to say. Next week, we're going to continue on our podcast when it comes to reloading, and we're going to start talking about making ammunition and some things to do. We had several calls this past week on the subject, and some of the people having some of the issues that we actually talked about in the previous two podcasts. And so we've had several guys call this past week and talk a little bit about the reloading and some of the issues that they ran into with reloading, when it comes to reloading, and some of the things that sort of got it ironed out. So we'll be talking about that in next week's podcast. It'll be part 3 of our series when it comes to reloading. Also, don't forget, if you're a shooter, if you're shooting at distance, the one part that's in motion is your trigger. Here, we really love Trigger Tech triggers. We put them in all of our custom rifles. We have 2 of the 2-stage triggers now going on the line for customers, and they are ready for sale. So we were on Trigger Tech's website this morning, and we see where we can actually now start placing orders for the 2-stage triggers, which I am a big fan of 2-stage, and we'll probably cover that in another podcast and maybe even some video work as we get later into the summer here. So if you're going to replace a trigger in your rifle to shoot better, put a better trigger in your rifle. We love Trigger Tech. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us here on the podcast. Next week, again, we're going to continue on our reloading series. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Our email is contact@wolfprecision.net. You're always more than welcome to call. I always take the time to answer all of your questions. Really enjoy it. So thank you so much. Until next week, take care. And you are listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast. Thank you.